Joining us now to talk more is former National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney and Senior Fellow at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, John Hanna. John, welcome back to NewsNation now.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk tactical things to begin with. Israel is warning residents in southern Lebanon to evacuate their homes and moving more troops to the border while beginning their ground war there. In addition, they've counterattacked Houthi militias in Yemen and launched airstrikes in Gaza and the West Bank. So as we approach the one-year mark of the October 7th attacks, how much longer can Israel keep up this tempo?
Well, that's a terrific question. Nobody knows for sure, I think, except the Israelis know what they've still got left in the warehouse in terms of munitions and other equipment as this war continues to expand. Israel has got its hands full already, finishing off Hamas militarily in Gaza, and now with this massive large-scale campaign to degrade Hezbollah in the north, and we're perhaps days away from an Israeli strike on Iran itself that they're promising will be severe and significant. So this war could still get larger. The question is how large is it going to get? And to some extent, that's in Israel's hands, depending on precisely the kinds of questions that you're asking about how much do they have left in the warehouse, how much more can the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, take on before they're stretched too far.
Right, and both sides always want to show to be very strong and not show any signs of weakness. Israel's still weighing a response to Iran's missile attack, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying this. Listen.
איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו.
Iran made a big mistake and they will pay for it, he says. Israel has already launched attacks against Iran's proxies like the Houthis and Hezbollah. But do you support Israel directly attacking Iran instead of the proxies, but just go straight for Iran?
Oh, absolutely, especially after what happened on Tuesday, the second time in less than 6 months that Iran has directly launched one of the largest ballistic missile attacks ever on another country. Israel cannot simply let that moment pass without demonstrating to the Iranians that they cannot normalize these kinds of attacks, that there is going to be overwhelming punishment. Again, the question is, how large is that punishment going to be? What targets is Israel going to go after inside of Iran? But if any American puts themselves in Israel's position, suffering the kinds of unprovoked attacks it's suffered over the last year, I don't think there would be an American worth his salt not demanding that their government answer those kinds of attacks with overwhelming force.
Well, one of Israel's top targets could be Iran's oil fields, and President Biden at a White House briefing addressed that possibility. Here we go.
The Israelis have not concluded what they're going to do in terms of a strike. That's under discussion. I think if I were in their shoes, I'd be thinking about other alternatives than striking oil fields.
What do you make of this response?
Listen, whatever the president's thoughts are about what Israel should do, talking about it and signaling it in public to the Iranians that as far as the United States is concerned, there are certain targets that are simply off the table, including some of the most important targets, Iranian ability to export its oil and earn massive financial revenues on the market, as well as the president earlier this week said he opposed any Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear weapons program, which, of course, if those 180 missiles that were fired last Tuesday, if any of them had been tipped with nuclear weapons, it would have been the end of Israel. Those are precisely the kinds of targets, if Israel thinks it has the capability and can take a shot, that Israel ought to be going after to degrade the Iranian nuclear program, which is the largest threat not only Israel faces, but the United States faces in the Middle East and the world faces.
Seeing the Iron Dome in action is quite remarkable, and Iran's missile attack on Israel was largely unsuccessful due to the missile defense system surrounding Israel, including that Iron Dome. What's the risk of it actually being too overwhelmed and failing, though?
Well, that's always been the great fear and concern, that as good as it is, and it's probably the best integrated air and missile defense covering any single country in the world, as good as it is, there was always a fear that not the Iranians would be able to overwhelm it, but that Iran would use Hezbollah and the 200,000 rockets, missiles, and drones, including very precise missiles that they've supplied to Hezbollah over the last 15 years, that if anybody attacked Iran, it would be those Hezbollah missiles that would overwhelm all of Israel's defenses by firing thousands of rockets and missiles a day at Israel. And the importance of what's happened over the last several weeks, what Israel has done to degrade and dismantle that massive Hezbollah threat directly on its northern border, has fundamentally transformed the balance of power and made Iran much more vulnerable now to an Israeli attack.
Dismantling it piece by piece. And also just want to remind our viewers, too, that ahead of this grim anniversary on Monday of the October 7th attacks, that synagogues are on high alert and looking around, being wary. Former National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney and Senior Fellow at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, John Hannah, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.